He was just a quiet mechanic in a small roadside garage on the edge of town. Grease on his hands, old boots, tired eyes. Everyone knew him as Imran, the single dad who worked double shifts and still showed up to his daughter's school plays with oil stains on his shirt. He never talked much about his past, never bragged, never complained. But that morning, everything changed. The new owner of the garage had arrived from the city. Expensive suit, loud voice, zero patience. He walked around inspecting the shop like it was beneath him. When he reached Imran, he frowned. "You're too slow," he snapped. "Customers don't want stories about hard work. They want speed." Imran calmly wiped his hands with a rag. "The car leaves fixed right. That's what matters." The owner laughed. "You're fired." Just like that. No warning. No second chance. The other mechanics looked down. No one spoke. They all knew Imran was the best among them. Engines that no one else could fix somehow came back to life in his hands. But the owner didn't care. Imran didn't argue. He simply nodded, packed his tools into an old metal box, and walked out. His daughter's school fee was due next week. He had rent to pay. Outside, the sky was unusually clear. Exactly 27 minutes later, a deep thunder shook the air. At first, people thought it was a storm. Then shadows swept across the ground. Two massive naval helicopters circled overhead before descending into the empty field behind the garage. Dust exploded everywhere. Workers ran outside in shock. The owner's face turned pale. Uniformed officers stepped out with urgency. "Where is Chief Petty Officer Imran Rahman?" one of them demanded. Silence. The owner swallowed. He doesn't work here anymore." The officer's expression hardened. "He rebuilt our fleet engines during emergency deployment 5 years ago. He's the only civilian certified to recalibrate the -9 Malawian Kwacha's rotor system." The owner blinked. "What?" The officer continued, voice sharp. "One of our helicopters carrying critical medical supplies made an emergency landing 20 kilometers from here. We were told the best mechanic in this region works at this garage." Everyone slowly turned toward the road. Imran was halfway down the street, toolbox in hand. A soldier sprinted toward him. "Sir, we need you. Now." Imran hesitated. "I'm not in uniform anymore." "You never stopped serving," the officer replied. The garage owner rushed forward, suddenly sweating. "Wait, there's been a misunderstanding. You still have your job." Imran looked at him calmly. "No, I don't." He set his toolbox down near the helicopter. Within minutes, he was inside the open engine bay, moving with precision. "No guastid motion. No hesitaschen." The officers watched in silence. 30 minutes later, the helicopter roared back to life. Cheers erupted. Before boarding, the commanding officer handed Imran a sealed envelope. "We never forgot what you did for this country," he said, "and neither should anyone else." Inside, the envelope was a contract senior mechanical consultant for the Naval Aviation Division. Triple his previous salary. Full benefits. Education coverage for his daughter. The garage owner stood frozen as the helicopters lifted off again, this time with Imran aboard. Dust settled. Silence returned. And the small-town garage realized something important that day. Never underestimate the quiet man with grease on his hands. Because sometimes, he's the reason the sky still flies. The helicopter blades sliced through the sky as Imran stared out the small window. Below him, the town grew smaller. For the first time in years, he wasn't worrying about rent, or overdue bills, or explaining to his daughter why he missed dinner again. But inside, he felt something heavier than relief. He had buried this life long ago. When the helicopter landed at the naval base, uniformed officers greeted him with respect, not pity. A young engineer approached nervously. "Sir, we studied your rotor recalibration protocol at the academy." Imran paused. "You did?" "Yes, sir. They still teach it." He hadn't known that. They led him into a massive hangar where the damaged helicopter sat open like a wounded bird. Engineers were arguing around it. "The vibration frequency is unstable." "No, it's the secondary shaft misalignment. We've tried everything." Imran didn't speak. He just walked forward, removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, the same way he used to in that small roadside garage. Silence slowly filled the hangar. He listened to the engine, not with machines, with instinct. "Who adjusted the torque settings?" he asked calmly. One engineer raised his hand. "You overcompensated by 0.3 degrees, Imran said. "At high altitude, that becomes 3 degrees. The room went quiet. He adjusted 3 bolts, realigned the calibration panel, reset the rotor timing manually, something none of them had attempted because the procedure was considered outdated. 10 minutes later, he stepped back. "Start it." The engine roared smoothly. "No vibration. No instability. Just power." The commanding officer turned to him. "You could run this entire division." Imran shook his head slightly. "I just fix what's broken." That evening, he sat alone in temporary housing on the base. The envelope lay on the table beside him. His phone buzzed. It was his daughter. "Abu, Uncle Rashid said helicopters came for you. Is it true?" He smiled softly. "Yes. Are you in trouble?" "No," he said gently. I finally found where I belong." There was a pause on the line. "Does this mean you'll miss my school recital again?" That question hit harder than any engine failure. He closed his eyes. "I promise you," he said quietly, "I won't miss it." The next morning, the commanding officer called him into his office. "We want you full-time," he said. "Permanent contract." "But there's something else." He slid a file across the desk. Inside were documents stamped confidential. "There's a new fleet being commissioned. Experimental rotor systems. High risk. We need someone who isn't just trained, but experienced." Imran looked up. "And if I refuse?" The officer smiled slightly. "Then you still walk away with honor. But if you accept, you won't just be fixing engines. You'll be building the future." Imran looked at the blueprint. He thought of the garage owner, of the humiliation, of the helicopters landing 30 minutes later, and of his daughter's recital. Slowly he closed the file. "I'll accept," he said, "but on one condition." The officer raised an eyebrow. "My daughter's school events come first." For a moment, the room was silent. Then the officer stood and extended his hand. "Deal." Outside, a new helicopter prototype was being rolled into the hangar. And for the first time in years, Imran wasn't just repairing machines. He was preparing to change the sky itself. The prototype stood in the center of the hangar like something built from the future. Sleek, silent, powerful. Engineers circled it carefully, whispering about risk factors and unstable test data. The project had already burned through millions. 2 previous lead consultants had walked away. Imran didn't walk around it. He walked straight toward it. "Show me the failure reports," he said calmly. A senior engineer handed him a tablet. "It loses stability at high-speed transition. We can't figure out why." Imran studied the data. Then he looked up at the rotor assembly. "You're solving the wrong problem," he said. The room went still. "The issue isn't the rotor," he continued. "It's the weight distribution during fuel shift." One engineer frowned. "That's impossible. We triple-checked." Imran nodded. "You triple-checked the math, not the movement." He climbed the platform ladder and placed his hand on the frame, feeling the balance. "Run a dry simulation," he ordered. Minutes later, the numbers began changing on the large screen. Stability variance, decreasing. Vibration index, stabilizing. The room filled with disbelief. "How did you see that?" someone whispered. Imran didn't answer, because at that exact moment his phone buzzed. He stepped aside and checked the message. It was a reminder. Parent-teacher meeting, 4:30 p.m. He looked at the clock. 4:05 p.m. The commanding officer noticed his expression. "Problem?" Imran hesitated for half a second. "My daughter," he said. "I have to leave." The engineers looked stunned. "Sir, the final simulation will still be here tomorrow," Imran replied calmly. Without waiting for permission, he grabbed his jacket and walked out of the hangar. Some officers exchanged looks. Was this the man they just hired to lead a national project? The commanding officer watched him leave and smiled. "He knows priorities," he said quietly. "That's why he succeeds." At the school auditorium, parents filled the small hall. Most wore business suits. Some arrived in luxury cars. Imran slipped into a seat in the back, still in his work boots. His daughter spotted him instantly. Her nervous expression melted into the biggest smile in the room. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage with confidence. After the recital, her teacher approached him. "She talks about you every day," the teacher said. "She says her father fixes things no one else can." Imran knelt down beside his daughter. "What did you tell them?" he asked softly. She grinned. "I told them my dad makes helicopters fly." He laughed gently. "Not yet, but the next morning he might." Back at the base, the final test flight was scheduled. High altitude, full speed, no room for error. Imran stood beside the prototype as the pilot prepared for takeoff. "If this fails," one engineer whispered, "the entire program gets shut down." Imran looked up at the spinning blades. "It won't fail," he said. The helicopter lifted smoothly into the sky. 100 meters, 300 meters, 1,000 meters, then full-speed transition. Inside the control room, every eye locked onto the monitors. Stability variance, normal. Rotor frequency, perfect. Fuel balance, synchronized. Silence. Then applause exploded through the room. The commanding officer turned to Imran. "You didn't just fix it," he said. "You saved the program." Imran watched the helicopter carve clean lines across the sky. For years, he had been told he was just a mechanic. Too slow, too simple, too ordinary. But now, the sky itself was proof. And somewhere in a small garage back in town, a former owner was probably watching the news. Realizing he didn't fire a worker that day, he fired the man who was about to redefine aviation. As the helicopter landed flawlessly, a junior officer ran toward Imran. "Sir," he said breathlessly, "Headquarters wants to name the stabilization protocol after you." Imran paused. Then he shook his head gently. "Name it after the team," he replied, because he never needed credit. He only needed the sky to fly. And this time, it flew perfectly.